Hello, this is Force 13 Live. Welcome to a rather rushed rehearsal on Hurricane Florence and the two depressions, as the case now is. Tropical Depression 8 and Tropical Depression 9 lurking in the tropical Atlantic. Along with that, we've got activity in the Pacific on both sides, with Hurricane Olivia possibly threatening Hawaii next week. And we've also got Tropical Storm Mangkhut, which could go on to affect the Mariana Islands as well. And with 92L a possibility for entering the Caribbean next week, still completely uncertain whether that's going to happen, by the way, there are potentially 4 US territories at risk for storm impacts in the next 7 days, or maybe a little bit more. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by the team in this hour. We're here with you for 3 hours tonight, and in the third hour, if things are going all right and we don't feel the need to discuss anything else, we'll do some Guess the Storm. But for these 2 hours, we're going to be knuckling down to the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the tropics right now. Let me introduce the cast of tonight. I'm joined by Orlando. Hello.
Hello.
You're joining us from an area that could be impacted by Florence next week.
Yeah, preparation and stuff around the area has begun to uptick, especially within local media. I guess you could say hyping the situation. Yesterday I went to the grocery store and it was pretty full. It naturally is full in the beginning of a month, but in this case it's unusually packed, and it's sort of starting a spread, but hopefully this system just ends up missing, but can't be ruled out, unfortunately.
Certainly not. Also with me tonight is David. Good evening.
Good evening, Nathan, and again we're here covering some very intense systems, and as you said, Nathan, we have the threat to the Marianas, and we'll have a look at that
I'll look at everything
later on.
Another one of our regular contributors, Hank. Good evening. You were with us last night, here again tonight.
That would be correct.
Indeed it is, and I'm sure you'll be showing us the analysis of what you've found in the last 24 hours has changed with any model runs and whatnot. We're also joined from New York State by Justin. Good
Hello,
evening.
People. I'm only here because, like I've been saying, I'm supposed to get the remnants and the tropical moisture from what's left over Jordan, and I could see up to 5 inches of rain.
We've got some background noise, so we're going to be struggling with that for a few moments. Justin was saying that he's going to get the remnants of Gordon as it moves through the United States. It's still situated over the southern part of the country right now, but for somehow they're still doing advisories on it.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Indeed. Well, there's some background noise over there, so I'm gonna make sure that's in the background away from the stream. Oh, yes. Orlando forgot to mute himself. Alright, we're also running another poll tonight, a new one. It's an obvious question. Which tropical depression will get its name first, 8 or 9? So far, after 23 votes already, 70% of you are saying it's going to be Tropical Depression 8. You can take part in that poll live on the community tab on Force 13 of the channel. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at some of these National Hurricane Center forecast charts. Florence is still a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, and Hank, is that the reason why the track is shifting west, or is something else coming into play?
Really weak right now. In fact, it's moving more west-southwest now. I noticed that it dropped 0.3 degrees in latitude.
Ooh.
But in this case, it is a lot, and that's significant and determining the future track of the storm. It's none of the models really predicted, excuse me, this week after becoming days ago a Category 4. None of the models really predicted it to get nearly this weak. So that's one of the reasons why the trough continues to shift further south and further south and further south. And the threat that moves further west, higher and higher and higher. And what we said yesterday, everything we said yesterday still applies. Still long range stuff. Something that you need to keep in mind. And unfortunately, today is looking a bit more likely that the U.S. could get an impact from this in the long range. So it is the most probable solution at either closest approach or landfall, and that is mostly because the storm, as Nathan said, is weaker and has been staying weaker, although it could be starting an intensification trend pretty soon.
And that would be interesting. We'll come back to Florence. Obviously, it's probably going to be the main feature. This is Hurricane Olivia, for those who are concerned. 110 miles per hour, and you can see on that final 5-day track there, you can see how the storm's expected to strike Hawaii, according to the National Hurricane Center. I think at the very minimum you'd be expecting some more heavy rain over those islands.
Yeah.
Yeah, at the very minimum. I haven't actually just now saw that cone. And
yeah, same here.
Something.
Yep. This is Tropical Depression 8, the new advisory, and they predict it to be a hurricane now for the first time, the National Hurricane Center. The same warnings in effect.
That's what the Atlantic needs, another hurricane. Welcome to the peak of hurricane season.
Now, at the beginning of the stream, we're still waiting for the graphic for Tropical Depression 9 to come out. I do have it here, but it's not yet translated to the graphics on my screen, so I'm just going to pause for a minute whilst we do that. But it is pretty much calling for a straight arrow westward movement as a hurricane towards the Lesser Antilles. What do you make of that, Hank?
I mean, all guidance right now, which is in general consensus that, yeah, this thing will probably get to that strength. As the actual strength when it moves through, it's still the other threat to land, a very far out threat. So we don't really know exactly how strong it could be. Some of the models are showing, legitimate, downs. Others are just showing a weak tropical storm. But either way, just have your preparations ready just in case. 9, which could be named either Helene or Isaac. The islands.
Yeah, and by the looks of it, it looks like, by the forecast, it looks like it's going to pull a track somewhat similar to Hurricane Matthew.
I don't know about that. Matthew only started out at the Lesser Antilles.
True.
We've got the graphic up on our screen now. You can see its track there.
I'm not seeing a Matthew track. I'm seeing more of a, I guess, primitive Harvey track.
Yeah, I actually do see that as well.
So that's the track. And the NHC say it's stationary, which caught a few eyes.
It is stationary.
It's just a bit uncommon to see a stationary storm in that part of the ocean.
Yeah.
Well, it's also really close to TD8 near the Cape Verde. In fact, of Africa, so all that flow being drawn into that storm is kind of slowing the trades, and by kind of I mean like really slowing it down, and stuck in an area where there really isn't too much flow. But then as both depressions intensify, they'll eventually gain some upper anticyclone activity, and both will be able to actually start to move in a general west direction, or west-northwest. But we'll see about that over time. Track forecasts for these two storms are still relatively uncertain because they are very young still.
This is a model run for Florence, and you can see what's been going on with those models. Hank, I'm quite concerned by this. The difference between the 6 and 12 UTC model runs. Now in the 6 o'clock one, there was about 60% of models that kept it way out at sea and doing that loop. and now at 12 o'clock you've got about 70% of models giving the US East Coast tropical storm force winds.
The GFS or the Euro?
These are a various array of models on the screen from the RAL website. I'm not sure how exactly they're determined. Maybe you can help me with that.
Sure. Stream. Okay. So yeah, a lot of them are, you know, moving into conditions to land, as you said, and then just general, just because, you know, the whole storm track is just continuing to shift south, and with a southward shift, you also need to have a westward shift or westward component. So.
Yeah, and I also just realized one of the models for Florence actually takes it right up into western New York, which is why I'm at.
Oh, of course. This is an example of the cherry picking that people often do. Let's not do any of that.
Yeah,
any of these tracks could come true, but most likely none of them will.
Nathan, if we were to consider what's on the screen compared to the scene, let's say 2-3 days ago, you can definitely note the shift.
Yeah. It's starting to, you know, it's not getting too far away from being an untenable position by the looks of things.
And Nathan, I'm just reading the technical information on Florence. Across today, little has changed with the structure. Low-level centre is located on the southwestern side of the deep convection due to moderate to strong southwesterly shear. Satellite intensity estimates are essentially the same from this morning. And what's the maximum wind? Around 55 knots. And something else that's caught my eye, NOAA is scheduled to conduct a research mission with the P3 aircraft tomorrow, which should provide some useful wind data and give us a better handle on the cyclone intensity. However, I would like to refer to previous comments of mine in last night's Florence update. Regardless of Florence's eventual track, large swells affecting Bermuda will begin to affect portions of the US East Coast this weekend, resulting in life-threatening surf rip currents. The risk of other direct impacts associated with Florence along the US East Coast next week has increased. However, there is still very large uncertainty in model forecasts of Florence track beyond day 5. It is far too soon to determine the exact location, magnitude, timing of these impacts. And one key point that I stressed last night, interest near and along the US coast should monitor the progress of Florence through the weekend and ensure they have their hurricane plan in place. And Nathan, as we just said, looking at the model consensus, it's definitely, and picking up on what Hank said, the south then west, and the picture is becoming clear, and that's my own personal position. But preparations have to be considered and acted upon, and it's wait and see. And Hank, what's going on with that blocking high? Have you got anything you can bring up on
that
the
high,
screen? Yeah,
well,
I think that's a critical
we'll get through some
item,
more
isn't it?
of these panels first, but if you want to be loading that whilst I go through the rest of this, This was Invest 92. That's no longer the case anymore. I'm just wondering if I can actually get a more recent image of that one. I don't think so. What was that? Here's Olivia.
92L.
It is obviously
yes,
9L
Olivia.
now. There's Olivia. You can see a lot of the models still don't know exactly whether to take it over Hawaii or not. That's another close call. Models take it either side of the islands or through them. So that's not very helpful. This is what the picture looks like right now, and if you're wondering what that other thing is there is another Invest 94L ahead of Florence. 10% chance in the next 48 hours, and I think they had it at 20% in the next 5 days.
Yep.
That's just southwest of Bermuda. From what I have seen on the models, it looks like it's going to be moving pretty slowly a bit towards the east, and then it might go south. So I don't know what's going on with that.
And Nathan, I'd just like to cut in for a brief, a few seconds. I'd just like to bring viewers' attentions to our main channel. I managed to capture the International Space Station flying over, or very close to, Hurricane Olivia early
That's
right.
on.
And
it's visible on the screen here. Visible here. There's also the Invest in the Eastern Pacific there, 92E, 70% chance in the next 48 hours. And also Tropical Storm Norman, which has now weakened, finally lost hurricane status well to the northeast of Hawaii. David.
About time.
Justin, I'd also like to mention with Norman, I have managed to also capture an International Space Station flying over Norman, and very, very unhealthy. Like,
yeah, clearly
what Nathan said,
sheared to death, 40 knots plus.
Yes, it looks shocking, but sometime we'll have a look at the footage, and we'll put it up on the main channel. And I'm waiting for the International Space Station later on today to fly over the Westpac.
The Joint Typhoon Warning Center has Invest 90W at orange now, medium chance of development. One or two models developing this one near Taiwan, or maybe in the Luzon Strait. I think it was the Navgem or one of the models like that, or maybe the CMC that had it sneaking up on Hong Kong. But I think the GFS and ECMWF had it affecting Taiwan. Mangkhut is over there on the eastern side of the ocean as well. That is one we're going to be watching very closely, as you may have seen in the earlier stream that we did today. A lot to talk about when it comes to that as well. Now, this is what I want to bring everyone's attention to. Some people have been asking for it already. These are the latest percentage chances of tropical storm conditions in the next 10 days, according to what we're seeing on the model output. 30% now for the Outer Banks. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, that makes 100% sense to me as well.
And me too.
And further north, you can see those 20 to 25% chances extending up to Atlantic City. So that's interesting. And and the percentage chances further up on Long Island and beyond are a little bit lower now than what they were yesterday, but they could rise again later. It's because the track for Florence has shifted towards the west and therefore slightly further to the south as well. And that's why you're even seeing places like Savannah, Georgia there at 10% in the next 10 days. That's 10 days out though, a very long time, and it is but when you're talking about that length of time, almost anything could happen. Those are our best estimates. This is Hawaii for Olivia. These are the latest numbers. 11% chance now of tropical storm conditions at Hilo, and the same on what's the name now? Maui. It's written there. Kahului was what I was thinking of, the city there. 9% on Molokai and 6% on Oahu and in Honolulu. This is the Caribbean. This is for Invest, what was Invest 92L, it's now Tropical Depression 9. 25% chance of tropical storm force winds on St. Lucia and Martinique. 20% on the long-suffering Dominica. And the percentage chances in fellow sufferers Puerto Rico have gone down quite a bit. It's about 10% now. But that could rise again as the storm draws closer. Don't forget, this is a 10-day outlook. It's a very long time, and a lot of things can change in that amount of time. That's all I've got. So I don't know if anyone would like to show some graphics now.
I guess I'll pull up some satellite imagery and do, some analysis, I guess. If that's okay with everybody else.
Fine by me.
Fine by me as well.
Alright, so here's a wide shot of the Atlantic right now. You can see the 5 individual systems right here. Gordon over Arkansas, this 94L thing between Bermuda and Carolinas. Florence, obviously. TD9 and then TD8. I'm not going to talk about Gordon because it's dead. 94L, I'm also not going to talk about because it's not going to form. I can pretty much say that right now. And then, obviously, these 3 systems over here is the main concern.
Now, Hank, I just want to stop you there because 94L is very curious. I heard myself in the background briefly, but okay, it's gone. Some people are questioning why it was tagged at all. And my best speculative idea, and that was before they put up the 20% chance, but it sort of feels like they're willing it to have a chance because it's somehow going to affect Florence.
Honestly, I doubt it. If anything, it's just going to help. It's going to assist Florence in intensification because it's a very just broad area of very weak spin, basically, and very sporadic convection. It's not very well organized at all, really. Just don't show it moving anywhere. You can see that in the 5-day outlook. It's just a big circle around the X, meaning it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere because Florence is going to be moving into the area.
Well, there you go. If it's not moving anywhere, then Florence is got to pass to the south.
Well, basically, some of the models do show a kind of an eastward shift towards Bermuda. At least the center of pressure, which doesn't really mean a whole lot with this system because it's not very strong in any sense of the word. If anything, this area of just messy convection, this is just a further sign that the flow around this area is prime for anything over in this part of the basin to move straight west, and there is a storm in this part of the basin, being Florence, that's likely to move straight west. And really, honestly, I kind of agree with the questioning of dubbing this because it just looks like any plain old doesn't look special to me at all, really. I mean, Chris's precursor looked more impressive than this, and Chris's precursor looked absolutely awful from the beginning. So I don't have any faith in this. I mean, the models really don't show anything happening with it. If it does form, the chances of it affecting Florence are still kind of small because Florence is likely to be a lot stronger in this portion of the basin once it arrives than it is currently, and that'll basically tear the whole thing apart. It'll shear to shreds, and all that remnant moisture will just be evicted into the system, which will probably just enhance intensification, honestly. And I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really worry about this too much. We'll just watch it though, because there's always that off chance that something happens, but in this case, I doubt it. Regarding, I guess we'll get back to Florence and the models and all that jim jam later on, I guess.
Now, night has fallen over these 2 depressions, and which one do you think looks the best right now? I mean, on infrared, number 8 doesn't look great, although it's broad, and 9 looks like it might possibly get named first.
To me, at least, I think that Tropical Depression 8 looks a bit better organized. TD9 is still pretty sheared. The actual, what do you call it, the center?
To be fair, it looks better on your screen than mine.
The center is exposed off towards the eastern side of this convective envelope here. The mid-level center is tilted off towards the west. You can't really see it too well in this imagery. But TD8, I gotta say, for just coming off of Africa, this thing is really impressive. And I gotta look back in the records, because this is probably this has gotta be one of, if not, yeah, one of the most easterly forming depressions, like, ever. I gotta look back and check on that, but this thing's something, and it will be passing probably to the I haven't checked the exact cone yet. I just got back from school, so it's going to impact the Cape Verde Islands, hence why it was designated as a potential tropical cyclone earlier today, because there are warnings on that there. And then we'll probably continue to intensify by the time it reaches this portion of the basin. And if it does get named, it'll gain the name Helene or Isaac, depending on whether TD9 gets named first. Either way, I think both of these will be named, and we'll probably see storms.
Could you tell me its current position right now, and I can see if I can answer that question for you?
TD8 position, 18.6 west.
18.6 west. Oh, it's already lost. 1988, apparently.
Oh, yeah, the unnamed storm.
5, and Fred of 2015, 18.4.
Yeah, I was thinking Fred. Yeah, that was Fred, yeah.
And also an unnamed storm in 1900, 18.5.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one.
So, at the moment, it's in 4th place. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, this thing and Florence really got going right off the coast of Africa. And really even TD9 also got going pretty quickly. Regards to TD9,
here's a little fun fact for you, Hank, before you continue, if I can just confirm this fact. Yep. Every system that formed east of the Cape Verde Islands didn't enter the Central or Western Caribbean.
Yeah, it sounds about right. These things usually, when they start early, they start to curve poleward earlier because they have more influence in the upper levels and are able to catch any out-to-sea path with, ridging in place over the Canaries and Azores and all that.
Only 2 ended up in the Caribbean at all. Can you name them? Just testing now.
My brain's kind of fried right now. I don't really. I mean, maybe something like Ivan, but didn't really form too far.
The Okeechobee Hurricane of 1928, I think. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And Hugo, which some people have been comparing Florence to for some reason.
I think it's just the South Carolina threat. I think that would be the only thing that I could see.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I don't see it.
No. It's people grasping at straws trying to find analogs.
Yeah.
Because there aren't any analogs for this. But there's this one storm from the Chesapeake Hurricane from 1933 and Isabel are the best 2, and both of those suck. Like, to put it in layman's terms, they both suck in terms of analogs.
Well, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention how the masses in general and the media are already grabbing on this whole thing, and they're over exaggerating the whole situation when I bet you behind the heads of the TV meteorologists, they don't even know where the hell it's going themselves.
They probably don't. That's usually the case. Usually they don't know exactly unless they're experienced in the actual field. Most of them just read off some sort of script in the background. But I'm not going to rant on broadcasting today. That's a topic for another time.
I was just going to tell all the viewers that if you'd like to send in any questions to us whilst we're on the air. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. It will light up nicely for me. There's a lot of comments at the minute, so it's quite difficult for me to keep on top of everything. So you'll have to go ahead and do that for guaranteed response. There were one or two much earlier on. There's a statement. I was just looking for any particular questions. I don't know if it's already been answered. I did answer one of them about the chances of tropical storm conditions in the northeast US. That was shown in the end. So yeah, if you got any questions, go right ahead. Oh look, someone's posted 3 times. Tyler Steinbeck that he's got a question. But we don't know what the question is. Okay, well, let's move on. William just asked there, as I've been looking, is it just me or is Florence's wind field kind of big?
I mean, it sort of is. Sort of. I need to emphasize the sort of part. It's a lot more based to the northeast, obviously, because that's where all the thunderstorm activity is. The south side's pretty bare for now, though I will say, you can see that, I mean, it's kind of hard to see because the loop kind of jumps over to another, it centers differently during the loop. But if you can kind of see right here, I'll kind of try to outline it for you. Watch these clouds right in here as I move this a little bit. They don't go anywhere. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but these cirrus clouds right here just don't budge. And that's telling me that the wind shear is starting to lighten quite a bit.
I've noticed that storm is likely.
Yeah, and then the storm is going to likely begin intensification. In fact, it might already be.
Yep. What I've noticed throughout today, Hank, is that it's been able to push out all of that convection to the south side again a little bit more.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, that's really crucial for the storm, because if it's able to do that, then it's going to be able to really get its act together over the next 24 hours. It's likely to get back up to hurricane status tomorrow. Be surprised. The National Hurricane Center forecast might not even be reflecting the potential for what it could easily do tomorrow. I think they're saying it's supposed to become a hurricane Saturday night, Sunday. I think. So I don't know. It's something that doesn't really mean much for the track if it does intensify a little more, because it's already in such a kind of, I don't want to say stable, but in a solidified track towards the west, and any adjustment to that would have to be something that would result in the trough extending down somehow, which at this point is pretty much a given that is not going to happen. So it's just a straight track, it looks like, but still quite a bit of uncertainty, as you will naturally find with long-range threats like Florence.
Yeah, no, this is one that's giving people a headache all over.
Oh yeah.
I'm guessing that this storm will definitely go down as a one-of-a-kind event, because it seems as though that its track already is extremely odd, and I guess if anything else comes out similar, at least we'd have some sort of analog for it.
We've got more questions I just want to bring to our attention. Mysterious Television says, some research makes me think that 8L will make a curve north near 35 to 40 degrees west. And do you
Interesting.
agree?
It's possible, I guess.
Jeremiah says, do you think Mangkhut could reach Category 5 status? I think it will.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
But it completely ignore what the GFS is saying under pressure.
But what I noted earlier on, whilst I was doing my first stream today, was that pretty much every single model, I don't think there was a single exception, predicted more strengthening after passing the Mariana Islands. And considering how the JTWC thinks it will already be a Category 4 by the time it gets there, and goodness knows what we're going to see out of that storm.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, usually the JTWC kind of, what I've noticed at least, Like, they've been very bullish in their long-range intensity forecast. And in some ways, rightfully so, because, you know, it's recognized that intensity forecasting is where we do struggle. So, and especially because we tend to kind of underestimate a storm's intensity. So I guess putting it higher like that does have some sort of merit, but in some cases it falls flat on its face. In other cases where it's like, wow, they actually predicted that. And in this case, they might actually do it because, man, Mangkhut is environment in front of it is ripe for explosive intensification. You could see that thing go from 0 to 100 very quick in that region of the basin. And I'm not showing imagery of it, but
yeah, we're just showing the latest JTWC track map. It's a bit squished, unfortunately, but Category 4 through Guam. It's I don't know whether it's a coincidence but they are calling for landfall. You know, the line takes it straight over Guam. A lot of the models I noticed, Hank, take it ever so slightly south of Guam. David, go ahead.
Appreciate what you just said about Guam. Just looking at the National Weather Service office over there on Guam. Their position hasn't changed to what I mentioned in the update. Tropical disturbance or tropical storm. Likely to strengthen impact the Marianas early next week. So at this point in time, their position hasn't changed.
Caden says, have you heard about the unnamed subtropical storm in the Central Pacific? If you mean the one that happened a week or two ago, I think it's tropical.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you agree with a Category 4 peak or higher or lower? I assume that's referring to Florence.
Cat 4 seems possible. I mean, I think it'll probably end up being a lower end Cat 4, but if it gets back up to that strength, then it wouldn't surprise me.
Mysterious Television asks, will Florence gain annular properties?
You know,
sorry, say that again?
Annular characteristics. You know, 1 or 2 models suggested that could occur.
I could see it happening. I guess that depends more on whether it can more rapidly intensify at first and then go under some sort of eye wall replacement and then come out as annular, because that storms usually don't become annular.
Well, it doesn't have much of an eye wall at all at the minute.
Yeah, and what I realized with Florence earlier, on the southwestern side, there was actually an outflow boundary coming off of it.
Yeah, that's what we were mentioning earlier, just showing that shear is really subsiding over the storm. In fact, let me try and see if I can...
the window's opening up.
I'm going to see if I can pull up a sounding from the storm to see how much shear has actually decreased. It's got to be pretty significant. Here it says it is now, as opposed to 30 knots yesterday, about 15, which is a huge reduction.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were showing the screen. Let's take a look.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I was showing it either, so you can see here, I mean, that's literally averaging about 16 to 13 knots, so yeah, about like 14, 15 knots of shear overall. I mean, throughout the troposphere, it's about 16 knots, which is a significant downgrade from yesterday. Yesterday was more like 30 to 35, and you can see obviously what happened with that. The storm basically disintegrated for a little bit. And ignore this max shear value. That's just because it's centered in the middle, and it's just interfering with tilting of the anticyclone and all that fun stuff. But in general, yeah, it's really decreased with this storm. Shear has, to be more specific, I guess. And I guess now that we're on the model page...
Alright, before you do that, I want to take some more questions. Again, a bit of a backlog. Could Tropical Depression 9 hit Tampa? You're a bit early still. Quite a lot early, actually. Ask again in 5 days.
Ask again.
Yeah, where were we now? I hate YouTube sometimes when it just jumps around the comment section. What do we use for satellite imagery and prediction stuff? There's quite a lot of website resources out there these days.
Yeah.
There's Tropical Tidbits,
A lot of people like RAM.
And RAM's actually the first source that noted 94 out, to be exact.
They are quite quick.
Yep. Quicker than the NHC on some occasions.
Well, they kind of have to. ATCF usually updates a lot sooner than NHC advisory, so RAM just kind of codes their information off of ATCF once it updates, so it's always going to be updated long before the NHC does their actual advisory slot.
Someone asking about wind shear. Do you have any graphics for that?
No, not really. I mean,
No,
the
me
Simus
neither.
graphic I really don't like at all
Yeah.
for a number of reasons, but
I'll be
in
able
general,
to,
like I was sorry.
RAM
go ahead.
diagnostic chart up showing. It'll take a minute or two. Well, we'll do that later. Let's go and take a look at those models, shall we?
Are you
Alright.
talking about the shear for out of Florence?
We'll get onto that shortly.
Yeah, shear ahead of Florence is decreasing. So I'm going to do the whole model spiel again for those of you who weren't on last night and to kind of update those who were. So again, I'm going to be using this parameter here. Basically, all you need to know is that blue shows lower heights, basically low pressure, and the orange and reds show, high pressure and ridging. Low pressure spins counterclockwise, high pressure spins clockwise, and I'm going to pull up this other source to help kind of give a general idea as to what is going to go on. So here is, that's the wrong tab. This is Florence right here. This is initialized this morning, by the way, so it's a bit further west than this. But here's Florence on the run. We can see that in this model run, at least, the ridging to the west of the storm is really beginning to increase, and that's because the upper trough that's been shearing it is an upper trough. It's higher up in the atmosphere. So you can kind of see that a little bit with the indentation between the two. We could see here that this ridge is beginning to kind of back off a little bit to the south, and I mean, well, this is a lot choppier, so I guess we'll go to the GFS and then get into the Euro solution because that's coming out right now. So let's go back a run because this is kind of smooth. This is smoother. The Euro just has 24-hour increments. This one has 6, so it's a lot smoother. We can see here. Here's Saturday.
You're looking at GFS now, are you?
I switched just to make it easier to give a visualization because it's less choppy than the Euro.
Well, I got some inspiration of you last night, Hank. I was showing the same graphics earlier today. This is a new run, though, so let's all have a look.
So, all right. So, here's Florence, right here. Bermuda is this little black speck right here, and then United States Caribbean. That's general geography. We can see that this ridge is building in over Canada. And this is going to be shifting towards the east. And this trough over here, dipping in over New Labrador into Atlantic Maritime Canada, Newfoundland, is going to be dipping down. Now, earlier on, we were thinking that this trough potentially is going to pull the storm on out to sea. Mm-hmm. This is very unlikely to be the scenario now. As you can see, we have the ridge building here, and this is going to become a lot stronger as a result of being surrounded by this general clockwise flow of just stuff, and it's going to try to connect here with this other ridge over here in the Azores and kind of create a much larger subtropical ridge. And you can kind of see that here. This is Sunday night. You see the trough is not being allowed to dip any further south because these two are connecting, and Florence is stuck underneath now because high pressure spins clockwise. This is forcing the storm towards the west, and you can see that here. This ridge really begins to build now that this trough picking out, and that there's still some more troughing here over Texas. Both of these two are kind of acting to be weaker and less influential on this, so this thing is allowed to really build into the troposphere, build down into the troposphere rather. So here's Florence. This
I
is
really
Monday
don't
night.
like the look of this, Hank, because every time something bad is on the way, it's usually caused by a complex situation like this. And that high pressure there is stronger in every run and extending further south.
Yeah, this is just making it even more concerning for land in general. And I mean, we're getting less and less time to actually watch this thing. Now we still have a lot of time to prepare, but every day it's becoming a bit more confident in the track, and its track forecasting confidence has really kind of become a bit more solidified today, though it's still not set in stone. So just keep tuning back in so we can give you the latest on this. So anyways, this is Tuesday. We could see the ridge building in north of Bermuda, and then Florence down here, almost halfway between Bermuda and Puerto Rico, a little bit closer to Bermuda though. And then we can see here, this is Tuesday night, and let's just go to Wednesday just to make it easier. Here's the ridge. Now you can kind of see right here it's beginning to kind of bulge out a little bit. It isn't a perfect circle. It's more like a peanut, I guess, in the fact that it's kind of indented in the middle a little bit. And this is going to force the storm, instead of moving it clockwise around it. If it was more circular, then it would be forced into North Florida, but instead this is more irregularly shaped, so this is going to be forced towards northwest. And in this model run, it actually shows the storm moving right into the Outer Banks of North Carolina. This is Thursday morning, hour 1:44, so 6 days away, which is still a considerable amount of time. And you can see here that the ridge is extremely strong. That is something else I haven't seen in a very long time. And then the storm moves inland, and instead of doing the whole looping motion offshore, now it's because it's forecast to be further inland, that is no longer forecast by the models. And you can see here it just kind of merges with this other trough that will kick in next weekend. So, well, really long range stuff we're seeing here, and then I'll just move on out. That is one model solution. Now let's check the Euro. I won't go into details.
I want to know what happened to Tropical Depression 9 in that loop. It died.
It didn't die. It's just, for some reason, it's not showing up properly. It's still there. I can show you that really quick. So here's, if it'll load, here's 9 right here. You can see it doesn't really die. It does move through as a not a very strong tropical storm, and then dissipates once it gets into the Caribbean.
It's still going.
Yeah, that's an interesting model run. And then obviously TD8 behind it is a lot more intense. So yeah, let's get back to the Euro solution. Yeah, let's just stick with this parameter because we don't need to see the upward steering because we've been over that. And we'll just cover all three right now. Florence, TD9, TD8. TD8 moves basically over the southern Cabo Verde Islands. TD9 gets some strength. TD8 really gets some strength. Florence continuing west. Here's Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
Florence is in between Florida and Bermuda. And TD8 is beginning to curve on out to sea pretty much harmlessly. And then TD9 is beginning to approach the Lesser Antilles. Here is Thursday. TD9 is impacting the Lesser Antilles. That's probably a weak hurricane on this model run, moving in between Dominica and Martinique. Here's Florence. This is kind of scary, moving into South Carolina. Because like I mentioned yesterday, the ridge could be shaped in a number of different ways, and in this model run, it's kind of shaped a little bit more adjacent to the flow of the storm. So in this case, it does move it into South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
On Thursday as a probably Category 3, Category 2 hurricane. Haven't really checked the exact winds. And then TD9 moves into the Caribbean, but does start to lose a little bit of strength as it moves south of Puerto Rico, and then it really starts to kind of fall apart as we get into next weekend. But again, the hour is pretty far out, and we can see here TD8 kind of getting close to the Azores, actually. That's probably a bit over-exaggerated.
One model scenario earlier today that had TD8 going along that recurvature and it getting stuck halfway up there, pretty much where it is in that graphic right now, and going back south again.
Yeah, that's a bit long range. And then you can see here, I guess we should probably stop
showing. Nadines this year, thank you very much.
Yeah, and then kind of TD8 kind of dissipates in the Caribbean. So I guess any concerns along the Yucatan or Central America like, one, this is very long range for you guys, and two, it probably won't be as strong as it is when it's moving into the Lesser Antilles. But don't mark my words; that could easily change. CMC, I'm just going to show you. It moves it further south into Georgia, but is also a significantly slower model. Doesn't move it in until this hour, basically. So Sunday of September 16th into Georgia. Now I think that's a bit too far south because it also kind of stalls it in this area, and I don't see why it would stall it. But that is something of note. HWRF, I'll actually go and zoom out for this one. For Florence. So I'm just going to go to winds. Here's our 126. As you can see here, a pretty potent hurricane. That's a Category 4 in between, say, Eleuther Island and Bermuda. And we'll be moving, if I change parameters here, you can see here that you still have this pretty strong ridge. So in this model run, it would likely be steered right into, I would assume, the Wilmington, somewhere between Wilmington and Charleston in this model, if this scenario comes to pass. HMON, we can't get a full-out view of this, of Florence in this model run, but I can tell you that it's forecasting a 3, a little bit weaker. It actually briefly becomes a 4, and then it's a bit weaker, but still showing it moving in that general westward direction, well south of Bermuda. And that is some good news for Bermuda, is that the models have continued to shift south. So literally Bermuda is the only place that benefits from the southward movement, because you're not going to be seeing, you might still see direct impacts, but not as direct, if you know what I mean. So then that's just Florence. I mean,
Florence. I can show everyone the wind swathes for the HWRF model here. There's Florence then, first of all, and you can see pretty much what Hank showed you, but in the whole picture as it moves on towards their gradual curve towards the northwest, but it won't be enough to avert a landfall we would expect. This is what was 92L, it's now Tropical Depression 9. It's one of the most aggressive models for this one, Hank, taking it west as a Category 3, borderline Category 4 by 5 days.
Yeah, that's something that's probably, that's probably a bit too overdone, I would have to assume. Interesting. These aren't showing up on my source, so that's someone that knows.
Just a quick one, this is Mangkhut as well.
Oh, Lord.
Borderline Category 5 there, according to the HWRF model. Only borderline, yeah. None of the models have gone completely nuts on that one yet, unless you count the GFS pressure. But it moves through the islands as a strong Category 4, as far as I can surmise. Back to you, if you've got anything.
Well, those are the general model solutions. I mean, we could look at the others, but I don't really feel like it looking one. But I will note that even though we have been showing all these models showing Florence moving into the United States, we just need to know that there is still a pretty large swath of error with the storms still, and there's going to be. You can see here that this is the Euro model, the ensembles. You can see pretty much all of them now shifted towards the United States. Wow, looking at that graphic, that just gave me chills. That's not good.
No.
But, yeah, you can see here it's still a wide swath. So we don't know exactly where in the United States there could be a landfall. But we have higher confidence there will be more direct impacts than we were yesterday. Yesterday we were commenting a lot on uncertainty. It's still pretty uncertain, but it's a bit more solidified in today's runs, and we could see that again in the GFS. Similarly, more of them are out to sea now. More of them have shifted west, sadly.
Yeah.
So
much further west than this morning.
Yeah, and then the main model pretty much splits right up the path of all of these ensembles. Same thing with the Euro. It pretty much splits right up the middle. So there's none of this interesting, like, why is this on the westward side, and, you know, some of the, like, the rest of the ensembles and all that jim jam. That's not the case here. So, man, that's not good, to say the least. And then
Go ahead.
So I was gonna see if I could find these are the wrong tabs. If I could find the ensembles for 90 for it's not even listed as 9 yet here.
Not listed.
There really aren't too many. In fact, yeah, it hasn't been initialized properly. So here's that's great. So here's the GFS ensemble for TD8. Generally showing it moving either over or just to the south of the Cabo Verde Islands and then recurving it on out to sea. Ignore this outlier over here. Most of them showing them. Most of them are showing at least a recurvature well out to sea. So that is something of note. Though I will also say that this graphic looked pretty similar to Florence's towards the end of August, and yeah, it's all the way over. It's basically all the way over here now. So I mean, really, again, these long-range models are something that we can't fully trust, even though they are, generate off of models that are considered some of the best in the world. No model's perfect. We're just not very advanced in the field just quite yet. And then as for 92, I mean, GFS just shows the stronger solution is actually recurving it. I don't think that's going to be the case for this. It might move a bit further north than these, but I don't think it's going to fully recurve out to sea just yet.
So there we are. Any questions?
Guess we'll just have to wait.
There is actually a question. Do you mind talking about the ridge forming off to the east near 8L? I think that's what's helping the northward track of 8L.
The ridge east of TD8, sorry?
Yes.
Apparently. Really. Yeah, apparently. I feel there's not really any ridge. Yeah, that's just long range extensions from the actual core of the ridge, which is over the Lesser Antilles.
East of 8 over Africa, I'm assuming.
I mean, if you look at this loop, this is why it's not moving. You can kind of see here all this flow right here is basically moving towards the complete opposite direction that your trades flow. Trades move towards the west, and this is not moving towards the west. This is moving towards the northeast, basically. So TD8 is just kind of stuck in a flow that is very weak, and that's why she's kind of sitting there. And you can see here that
they were talking about something off to the east. I'm guessing over the African continent, something that I assume is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, there's actually 2 areas from what I've been hearing.
2 areas
possibly another 2 tropical waves coming off of
not that either. Let me read it out again. Do you mind talking about the ridge forming off to the east near 8L?
Oh.
I think that's what's helping the northward track.
Oh, I think she's they're referring to the anticyclone forming over TD8. Yeah, that's normal. That doesn't really affect the path of other tropical cyclones, especially when they're a similar intensity. It's just stalling because of, again, the trades are kind of moving in opposite directions because both of these the influences of both of these depressions are quite expansive. So yeah, there's not really any significant ridging going on over here, and even then the ridge over TD8 is still rather weak because the storm is still pretty young as a consequence. So yeah, we'll just have to just keep an eye on both of these storms, obviously. TD8 more imminent threat to the Cabo Verde Islands. TD9 more long-range threat to potentially the Lesser Antilles and the Northeastern Caribbean, a place that really does not want to see a tropical cyclone, even though they haven't really seen any impact so far this year. Last year, not so much. And then Florence, obviously, moving off towards the west and going to be a long-range threat to the United States and more distant threat to Bermuda, but will likely pass south of there.
Here's another gear change. A question that came in: could Olivia survive Hawaii?
Not too far out to tell, really. I mean,
are you still on the models there? Could you possibly take a look at the accumulated rainfall on this, because it has been saying quite a few things recently.
Yeah. Let me just total accumulated back up around. So, if it'll load. see here that Olivia moves right in and causes about,
like 2 feet.
Quite a bit of rain over the Big Island. But again, that's just due to the same thing happened with Lane. A lot of flow moving into the mountain and getting...
It's actually not as aggressive as a previous run that I saw.
Yeah, so this is just because the mountains of Hawaii, Mauna Loa, excuse me, basically forcing all of this air upwards and basically forcing rainfall on the side of the island that gets bombarded with the moisture flow. And similar thing that happened with Lane, that's why Hawaii got 52 inches of rain in some places, because all that flow moving in for such an extended period of time. Not saying Olivia will be anywhere near as wet as Lane per se, but that's potentially a similar type scenario, but not as aggressive, I guess. And, I mean, track forecast for Olivia. I mean, again, long-range stuff. The European also shows it moving right through the islands at 120 hours, so it'll be moving through Wednesday. BFS probably does a similar thing, although in this run, it's further towards, it misses it to the east and dips to the southwest, further east of the islands. So that's potentially good news. And then HWRF.
Yeah, from what we've seen, models that are going both north and south of the islands. There's one that's going north.
Yeah, here's the HWRF moving pretty much, maybe a slight tint of west-southwest. And this will probably continue moving off and potentially landfall in Kauai on this run. And then HMON, I believe it can load. And then HMON, moves it right through the Maui Channel on Wednesday morning. That actually might be, through the Maui Channel Wednesday morning. So this could be interesting for Hawaii as well. It's not just the mainland U.S. that could see an impact, but it could also be the Hawaiian Islands and Guam.
And Guam. And Puerto Rico.
And Puerto Rico. You're right. Wow. Okay.
I know, it's bad.
Like, wow.
Pretty much anywhere in the U.S. is getting hit.
Yeah, that's all right. That just hit me.
I've got some more questions, mainly historical type questions. Coco wants to know, what was the storm with the most ace in the Pacific? Assuming East Pacific, I think. They suggested it's John. I think it is, right?
It would actually be, I think, Tico of 1983. I'd have to check back on that.
Interesting.
But I think it would be that storm. John is pretty high up there, so are Hector and Lane.
Yeah.
For the Pacific as a whole, Hurricane/Typhoon Ioki of 2006 would be the long reigning winner in that category for that portion of the basin.
A question regarding whether low-pressure cyclone-like systems have existed in the Great Lakes.
There was...
Yeah. I think it was 1996.
Like the Hurricane.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what they're referring to.
Yeah, that's a very rare event. That doesn't.
That brought a lot of snow to Western New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it was in September. I don't think it did.
We've crashed into the second hour of our show now, and I'd like to introduce Cyclone Freak for this hour. I can't remember if we had any nicknames for you, but that's your name on here. I don't know if you'd like to speak at this time.
Yes, I just wanted to... Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking at the model. Anyway, yes, I'll just be referred to as Michael on the stream.
I'm sorry.
Just like before.
There's so many names, so many people with names, and we've already got one Michael. Now we've got two. Well, welcome back, Michael. I know that you're in Florida, South Florida, and I guess you're watching on with interest. You don't think Florence is going to get anywhere near there, I hope?
No. Even though what I'm concerned about, and I'm not as concerned as I was before. However, it's still a slight concern. Tropical Depression number 9.
Yes, one or two people already asked questions in Florida about whether it's going to go to Tampa. Oh, we don't know. But
too far out to tell.
It is something we're gonna.
Yeah, it's way too far out to know. That's what I said. But I was in class. I believe it was yesterday afternoon, and I looked at one of the models, and it showed it coming in right. Tropical Depression 9. At the time, it was 92L, coming in right through Fort Myers, and I was like, "What? This isn't right." And it changed before, but then again, it's too far out to know exactly where it's gonna go.
Here's the question, though: how many hours out was that model?
Past 10
I want to say
days.
210.
It was past 10 days.
That's
That's a long time.
That's too far out.
200
Quite a
between
while.
210 and 170.
And actually, I'm just going to butt in really quickly. The GFS run is coming out right now, out to hour 114. And in this run, it looks to be, farther south than the previous run.
Okay.
Wait, for which one?
For Florence. It also has
Oh,
a stronger TD9 moving towards the Antilles, probably because it's actually depression now. And not really much change with TD8, but yep, that's not good in any sense of the word.
What the? Oh, Florence did go south. Oh, all right. Well, do you guys have any? Maybe you have before. I wasn't on the stream, but do you have any predictions for a specific city that you think Florence will make landfall in?
Oh.
No, it's way too far out to say that for sure.
Best I can give you. Where did he come
Anywhere
from?
along the coast is up for grabs
Strat
right
has
now.
joined us from nowhere as well. Good evening, Strat.
Good
Those
evening. I
trees-
came straight back from work.
Now, the best I can offer with regards to that is the percentage chances that I've laid out in the next 10 days. These are just, general numbers based on what the models are saying at this time. 30% chance along the Outer Banks, 25% down to Wilmington, North Carolina, 15% at Charleston, and all of those are possibilities. And as the cone narrows, those percentages for whichever area is looking the worst, those percentages will end up snowballing. And there's the Northeast as well. You may note that last night the percentage chances further north than New Jersey were higher than they are today. That's because the models have shifted west to the point where Florence doesn't emerge off the coast again in a lot of scenarios, as we've seen earlier from Hank.
It's just I think the 18Z for the GFS might be starting to run out. I don't know if you guys got a chance.
Yeah, we were
to
just
look at
talking
it.
about that.
Yeah, it's currently on my screen share right now. It's out to hour 120 right now, and Florence is A, farther south than the previous run, and B, a little bit, same intensity basically, but yeah, it looks like this one will be moving into Wilmington. I would have to guess. It also has a stronger 94L, excuse me. Not even a invest. What am I thinking? TD9, that one, the one that ain't moving. That one.
The one that's further west at the minute. People are going to get confused by all this, if we are already.
Yeah, and apparently Tropical Depression Gordon's still alive.
Yeah, 10 miles an
It
hour.
really isn't. It's just being the WPC is just still issuing advisories on it, and that's kind of what they're supposed to do. Literally, its forward wind speed is its current movement. It's dead. So don't worry about it.
It's 7 miles an hour.
It's just a rainmaker, so it's all right. Don't worry too much about Gordon. Like I don't even. Where is it? Like
It's over northern Arkansas right now.
I know. I'm saying where is it on the run? It doesn't even initialize as a low pressure center.
No, it's not there at all. Where's 94?
Yeah,
No,
because
no
it's
bars.
that weak.
Yeah, you just about make out 94L at the very beginning there.
Yeah, that little, very minuscule closed isobar with what 7 knot winds. Yeah, that's 94 L.
Yep.
7 knots.
And it looks like convection's decreasing with it in the latest hours as well, so might not last that much longer.
Well, that's just because of diurnal convection cycles. That, I mean, That's just normal for storms to oscillate like that.
Yep. Okay, I want to take us now to the latest images of Mangkhut right now. You can see them on 3 panels here. The latest floater imagery, and we may as well start talking about this one a little bit now that we're into the second hour. We've talked a hell of a lot about the Atlantic in the first hour. We'll obviously come back to it later, but I guess we should talk more about this storm. How do you think it's been looking on the satellite imagery? It's passed close to some of the Marshall Islands, Enewetak Atoll, I believe it is. That was under a tropical storm watch. I'm surprised they didn't put it up to a warning. The storm is pretty close. But that is the last point of land before Guam and the other Mariana Islands. Any thoughts on its current appearance?
Not
Looks
particularly impressive.
I would have to disagree. It looks like a storm that's about to explode.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well.
You just
Looks
get
like
that
it go-
feel about something like this.
And it looks like it could go into rapid intensification if it wants to.
Could go into explosive intensification if it wants to. Good lord, that environment in front of it is ripe. Oh my lord.
Low shear, warm water, ocean heat content has
Well, we
everything
haven't
going
actually
in its
looked at
favor.
Westpac models if you want to go.
Well, it's on my screen share right now.
I
So
know, that's why I mentioned it. Well, we may as well whilst we're here.
all right, so
Gives me a chance to
I'm
find
having this-
something else to put on the screen.
yeah, so this is the GFS run that's currently coming out for Mangkhut, and this one, as you can see, moves it to the west. That's 36 hours out. That's a hurricane or typhoon, excuse me. Too Atlantic based right now. My apologies.
They still issue hurricane warnings down there, though. The US
Moves
places.
through the Mariana Islands as a Category 3. Please ignore the pressure. The model does have problems actually detecting what the true pressure would be with these types of storms. This is a Category 3, more than likely moving through the islands. Becomes a Category 4, and then eventually it's probably a borderline 5 right there. With that pressure suggesting a world record breaker, but that's not going to be the case here in this run, at least. And this is as far as it goes. So any impacts potentially to anywhere along the East Asia is still to be seen. I mean, this is Thursday, so this is, and it's still all the way out here. Well,
It's like it's not definitely not going to be another, Hurricane Patricia just in the West Pacific.
So here's 72 hours Monday, moving actually just south of Guam in this run.
Yeah.
And then long range here's
Just track back there as well. You can see Invest 90W developing in the South China Sea. Well, sort of in the channel there.
Well,
Yeah,
they're going right around the one.
Very quiet.
Yeah, the Euro's
Yeah,
been trying to pick up on that one for about 2 days now.
Yeah, moving it through the Luzon Strait. And then Mangkhut, over here, it's east of the Philippines on 6 days. And then long range, just this run does make it impact Taiwan as a pretty significant typhoon. That still remains to be seen as to whether or not that will occur. HWRF, for some reason, doesn't even pick, it still has this 99W. That's excellent. I don't know why that's the case. But it shows it as a. It's not right. That's got to be stronger than that. This is probably an outdated. I don't know what's. I don't know
Yeah,
what's going on here.
HWR took a while to.
Oh, this is from yesterday.
That's yesterday.
So, as Nathan showed, it was supposed to become a borderline 5 on the run. At least that's what the HWF said. And I don't remember, was it right on or was it south of Guam?
I couldn't actually tell on the HWRF.
To the south of Guam, according to this ECMWF.
Yeah,
Nathan.
a lot of the models saying just south, but I couldn't see on the HWRF, so.
Yeah.
And I just
So-
want to say, sorry Hank, I'm just reading the Joy Typhoon Warning Center's technical information. They say that the tropical storm will undergo rapid intensification for 24 to 48 hours, then steady intensification for 48 through 72 hours. So rapid intensification
boy.
over the next 48 hours, then reducing slightly for the next 48 to 72 hours. And the intensity forecast is close to what the HWRF is saying.
They're all in pretty good agreement about that intensity. Strong, in a word.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, basically just a pretty strong storm. Potentially just as strong as Jebi was. Not even like a few weeks ago. Or was it a few? It felt like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Feels like that to me as well. It's been less than that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I lost count of how many systems we've seen in the Westpac.
This is TD number 26.
I know.
So very ahead of what is usually seen. Ace isn't as reflective of how ahead it is because there were a lot of junky storms in July and August. But recently we've had a string of, pretty decent Ace producers. Sulik, Cimarron, and Jebi were all pretty big Ace producers, especially Jebi and Sulik. And so was Maria. And what was that other storm? Shan, I think it was produced quite a bit. So,
Yongdari?
Yongdari earlier on in the year as well.
Yongdari produced about 8 units.
Okay,
so not a
What about Cimarron?
No.
Jello was.
Yeah, Jello-Odd as well.
Wow.
But that was not very long-lived.
Just a note on this, I just want to show this, just while Hank is showing that. On the screen you can see the RAM diagnostics showing how all of these different parameters. Wind shear is going to be low to moderate over the next few days. The worst day for Mangkhut will probably be around the 10th, maybe the 9th. Sea surface temperatures though will be through the roof, 30 degrees, pretty much all the way through, at least 29 at minimum. And relative humidity looks good. As far as I can see, Hank, there is nothing at all stopping continued and rapid intensification of this storm, apart from itself.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, hopefully it just doesn't manage to really get its structure together that quickly. I know earlier this year in the Western Pacific we've seen a few storms that have been in pretty favorable conditions not be able to get their act together at this point in time. And hopefully we see that with this, but it just has perfect conditions in front of it for quite a long stretch of time at this point.
Okay. We're also running a poll tonight if you'd like to be involved. It's on the community tab of our YouTube page right now. That's the first one in the list. 150 votes so far. Which tropical depression will get its name first? 81% say it's Tropical Depression 8 that's going to get named first. Let me just read off a few comments on that. Richard Lee says less shear in its path. And there's a good one. What happens if it's a tie? Tropical storm designation on the same advisory and tropical depression on the same advisory. I don't think that's happened before. I don't know.
I think 8 has the advantage because it has every 3-hour advisories right now, so it could be able to get the edge just barely.
That's the point.
Yeah, we're good for their strat.
TD8 was, well, it was also designated as 8L 6 hours earlier because of the potential tropical cyclone thing. So, yeah, that's something.
Not a TD, though, when we get into all these technical things. I mean, PDC8, I mean, it's just... I thought at first that they weren't going to make it a TD, and TD9 would have been there, and PTC8 wouldn't have been a TD, and that would have just been plain wrong.
Yeah,
anyway.
I would have had a question. What would have happened if PTC8 didn't form into Tropical Depression before 92L? Would 92L be Tropical Depression 8 then?
No, they've already numbered it. They can't go back on that, and this is why it's so confusing. Just as it was last year.
Yeah, they can't do that because once it's designated as a potential tropical cyclone, it already gets a designation as a numerical designation from ATCF, so it can't go back and just name a separate, because then you have 2 8s and no 9s. So,
but at the minute, everyone in those comments are saying it's going to be TD8. I'd like to hear from the 19%. It's now 18% actually. So if anyone's saying TD9, I want to hear why. So that is on the community tab right now.
Nathan?
Go.
Westpac, Troy Typhoon Warning Center has upgraded to to a tropical cyclone alert for 90W.
That's interesting. Tropical
Good thing
cyclone
now.
formation alert for the one off the Philippines.
Yep, 90W.
That's the one that would head towards the South China Sea.
Yep.
Alright, well, that's very interesting. And if you've got any
No, it
comments
was
for us
low
on
yesterday.
this stream, start your message with Force 13, and I think Strat's been using our account again, because he's posted a message saying, tag Force 13 for any and all questions. And also, just to let you know, next hour is our last hour, so at the top of the next hour, we're doing Guess the Storm again tonight, as we did last week. So
Yay.
we're going to have, you know, assuming we've got through all of the information, we'll have a little bit of that. Here's some questions. Do you think this will hit the US? I'm not sure what you're talking about. I'm guessing it's
Probably
Florence.
Florence.
It's a very basic question we've been discussing all evening. And earlier today, I was saying that, you know, 40%, only 40% of the models moved it inland. It's now something like 60 or 70%. So, you know, those chances are racking up. I just want to keep going here. More comments. Olivia's eye is kind of shrinking. And what is the most recent storm to hit Hong Kong and Hainan? Well, there would have been one for Hainan this year. Can't remember which.
Babinka.
There you go.
It was a Wiener.
Yes.
Okay. And Hong Kong, I'm not sure exactly.
I mean, Hato was pretty close.
Yeah, certainly was.
Babinka and Sun Tin were the ones that got to Hainan Island in northern Vietnam earlier this year.
Here's another one. Is Florence going to be a threat to New Jersey? Well, as we
And I've
saw...
got a question too, Nathan.
Decreasing odds.
Yeah, it is decreased. North of the Delmarva Peninsula, those odds are starting to decrease a little bit. But if something strange happens and it shifts back again, you never know.
Because it is important to note, yesterday, Bermuda at one point was in the direct center of the cone, and now it's completely out of it. So it's still too early to tell where exactly it could end up, because it could shift just as far back up north again tomorrow.
Yeah. Will Hurricane Florence's remnants flood upstate New York?
Hard to tell at this point. I mean, really, it could be.
The remnants of Gordon will.
It could basically produce adverse impacts pretty much anywhere along the East Coast at this point.
Oh, we got some more fantastic questions. Do you think the Weather Channel is very accurate?
Nope.
They're a bit fanatical.
That's probably the best question of the night right there.
Yes and no.
That's a good question. Good answer.
That's debate 13,
However-
I guess. Do you think September will explode for the Atlantic? Well, I think you're witnessing it right now.
It's already happened.
Is this one of the first times we've seen 3 tropical depressions active at the same time during the satellite era?
Oh, I don't know.
A lot. We saw
Well,
We saw-
Gordon isn't really one.
last year. 2 of them were high in force.
Gordon's
Storms
pretty
at
much
tropical
a
depression
remnant of-
intensity, though.
Well, Gordon isn't really one.
Nathan,
We're here, mate.
as I'm broadcasting onto Facebook, here's this one. Can we just recap what's happening with Olivia? What sort of threat will the Big Island see from
Yeah.
the system?
Now, you've been...
And
How
what should
long
they be looking out for?
This is how wonderfully coordinated we are. How long have you been broadcasting on Facebook?
I think this is the 3rd live broadcast that I've done.
Have you been covering this whole stream, though?
Yes, I have.
Oh, that's
except for
very
the
good.
first 5 minutes.
All right, that's great. Well, as you can see, Olivia is on the bottom left-hand side of your screen there in that Eastern Pacific panel, looking a bit like a donut. Starting to look a little bit flaky, though. But, yeah, Hawaii at the minute, 11% chance of tropical storm conditions in the next 5 days on Hilo. And those chances are going to increase. Models spread all around the Hawaiian Islands. I would say at the minute, odds are there will be tropical storm force winds somewhere on the island, and if not, it will be a lot of rainfall on the Big Island in particular. Let's just get some more. Let's just go fully into the questions here. Will Mangkhut's intensity be like Haiyan?
No.
It could be stronger.
Quick, no.
No, we've no idea. No idea, can't tell you. Keep watching. Keep watching, we might be able to tell you in a few days. Will Florence hit Delaware?
And North Carolina.
North Carolina is in the firing line. Delaware, you know, maybe, but the chances are ever so slightly lower than they were yesterday, but there's still very speculative chances at 6 days out at minimum. Any end in sight to the tropical waves? That is a
The
decent,
models calmed down the MDR after
that is a decent question.
8 and 9, so it doesn't seem like we'll see anything yet, but a few days ago no models were showing 92L or 93L being anything, so you can't say that for sure.
Strut, here's one for you. What's the MJA doing?
I don't know, I don't know where those graphics are, you do.
Oh,
Also, someone is asking if Florence is going to hit the United Kingdom.
I was
Nathan,
going
do
to
you
say that one as well. Is Florence going to hit the UK?
I cited that one.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to ask the Daily Express. They'll give the answer you're looking for. But if you want the actual
Alright,
answer,
let's go
it's probably
16 days
no.
out on the DFS.
Probably no.
Find out. No, but it seems like it's obviously going to make a major impact on Greenland. That's definitely a fact.
And Nathan, one for Mysterious Television.
Yeah, I've
can
just caught up now.
Hurricane split in half and form 2 low pressure systems?
Not a fully fledged hurricane, no. Only a very weak tropical storm, possibly, or weaker systems than that.
Oh my.
Someone's asking if Mangkhut could be stronger than Tip according to the GFS.
It could. I honestly think
could.
that it could be stronger than Tip. I don't think it. I don't predict that it will, but you cannot rule that out after those islands.
Although I think we.
I'm
need
sorry,
to...
you can't rule that out. I don't think
no,
it will
I'm
happen,
not
but
I'm just saying that we need to mention every stream because people never really know this. Is that the GFS always has problems with its pressure in its model runs. So if you see, you know, it's say 900 millibars, and you pull up a scale that says, you know, a category 5 would mean 920 millibars or under, and the GFS says that, that probably means it's a category 2 hurricane on the GFS. we have to do is zoom in on that storm or invest on you know, whatever site you're using and look at what it says the maximum winds are rather than the pressure, because if I go on my own personal screen to Florence and go to, let's see, if I go to 126 hours, it says 942 millibars, but not even a major hurricane. And if I go to Mangkhut, it's going to say something worse. It's going to say, it's going to say 167 millibars for a storm that's barely a Category 4. So there's really problems there.
Yeah.
Well, as we said, there's nothing stopping the Westpac system to rapidly intensify. The environment's perfect. And Nathan, just briefly, what was that comment that you and I were talking about the Dry Typhoon Warning Center, and when you cited the update as one of the quickest?
Yeah, well, they did the first advisory, the very first advisory for Mangkhut that they put out had it at 25 knots at the initiation of that advisory, and by day 5 it had the storm at 135 knots, which is just short of Category 5 hurricane status, typhoon status. And I don't think I can ever recall seeing anything like that from a JTWC forecast. They didn't do it with Haiyan. They didn't do it with one or two other storms I quickly looked up. I'm not sure if they have at all or not, but I find that fascinating, and if it has happened before, it's very rare. Were we joined by someone else then? Sorry.
It was just Orlando.
Ah. Okay, well, in this case, I'm not sure where we're going to go to next. Where do we want to go next?
Have we done?
What's the next advisory out on Florence?
That's in a good 2 hours.
Have we
1.5
done
hours.
zoom-ins on Olivia yet?
Well, we've done little bits and bobs. Let's take a look and see if we can get the latest Ghost 17 imagery of Olivia.
And we might as well cover Norman for a split second then as well.
Yeah, a split second. There we go, we've covered it. Now, Olivia.
Thank you, Nathan, because looking at the International Space Station flying over at Strat, and Nathan saw it. Not point talking about Norman, but Olivia.
It's
yes,
gone.
Florence, yes.
Alright, this is Ghost 17 imagery of what Olivia is looking like right now. I'm just going to animate this loop. There's everyone in the Skype room. Wonderful. The Discord room. We've been in Discord for nearly 2 years, and I still keep calling it Skype.
And Nathan Wild Earth he's asked a question about the tropical depression off the east coast of Taiwan.
We'll go to
I
that
think
shortly
that
as
would
well.
be
Is there a
90W.
tropical
So
depression there now?
we'll come to it.
Well, it depends who you ask. I wonder. I haven't actually, had time to check because everything's so busy in the tropics at the moment. I do wonder whether the Philippines have possibly done something on that. I'll get to that shortly.
I think
but
they
first,
had nothing.
let's take a look at what Olivia's looking like right now. This is the animated loop, and hopefully it loads properly. It can take a little while sometimes, but I'm starting to get a general idea of what it's doing. And any signs of consolidation there in those images?
Well,
I mean,
I could say the ice becoming squished.
I'm not sure.
It's definitely not as symmetrical as earlier.
No.
Well, the convection is blowing up more on the eastern side than what you saw earlier as well. It just looks for the storm that if the northwest eyewall might be about to breach.
No, yeah, I was about to say, like, that convection blowing up on the east side is more of a sign of weakening than anything, and not
Yeah.
strengthening, because it's a storm a lot more asymmetric, and, I mean, that eye's literally gone from a circle to an egg in the matter of, was that 3 hours, I guess?
Yeah, if the northwest eyewall opens, it's got a little chance of really maintaining intensity or weakening slowly, which would be great news for Hawaii.
So I just I was just doing some more research there on the Philippines. They haven't designated the depression Pagasa. They haven't done it. Japan haven't done it either. So nothing on that yet.
There is a bit of information from Pagasa on the low pressure system. Looks like they're advising people to prepare and flood related. If you can manage to open up the link, they do have a weather advisory in place.
So we've got all kinds of things going on absolutely everywhere at the minute. The tropics are swamped.
This is worse than the start of August when you were away.
Well,
The specific activity, though.
It is September now. That's why.
Sure, we got we got technically 4 storms in the Atlantic. We got 2 in the Pacific.
And Nathan, I do have an update for you, mate.
We got 1 in the Westpac and probably another one soon. This is just...
You've got an update.
Pagasa is saying
September.
that the low pressure area may develop into a tropical depression within 48 to 72 hours. Meanwhile, another low pressure area is estimated based on all available data 700 kilometers northeast of Basco Batanes, 24.9 north, 126.8 east. The LPA is not expected to directly affect any part of the country, and the next update will be incorporated in the 24-hour public forecast, 4 p.m. this afternoon. Actually, that was yesterday's date. So 11. There's one 11 a.m. Today. So
all right.
Probably about
This
3 hours
is the
from now.
latest satellite imagery. You can see that system over the northern Philippines. Not quite in the visible range yet, but what is visibly visible is Mangkhut, and you can see it here. Sort of looking a little bit naked on the whole. It's a very broad system, but doesn't have a lot of meat in the middle, as it were. But that may change pretty quickly. But there is a visible image of what it looks like from a space observer. And you can see in relation to the Mariana Islands just how far they are from Guam, Saipan, Tinian and Rota.
And I should mention to our viewers, Nathan, that we do have a member on the trials on Saipan. So I'll be looking forward to getting reports from Charles on this system, and also he experienced a bit of Simon a few weeks ago.
Oh, and if you're wondering about Norman, it's just on the very edge of Himawari 8. Looks terrible. It's naked now as well. The convection has been ripped away from the center and it's almost all gone.
They had it as a hurricane earlier with the convection stripped away as well, which was... But they did that with Miriam as well, so... I don't know, it's been surprising how these Central Pacific storms that have gotten there survive under 50 knots of wind shear for quite a few days.
More subjectively, the actual storm advisory slots have been closer towards 5 hours previously from the storm actually looking like trash. Case, yeah, Norman was 75 miles an hour. It looked like trash, but the advisory was also issued 5 hours earlier. ATCF had updated and showed it was clearly a tropical storm. Same thing happened for Miriam as well, and Wayne to an extent.
I think though, what was it? It was like, when it started to look really bad, they issued the advisory then, still having it as a hurricane.
Always, satellite presentation doesn't always correlate.
Exactly.
To what
look at Florence.
Winds usually slow to come down.
When Florence started doing that rapid weakening, people were calling for it to be downgraded to a tropical storm immediately.
Yeah, that's not how atmospheric dynamics work. Like, at all. And my dog won't shut up.
Thinking he wants to have an argument with you.
I think he wants to say his opinion.
Can you briefly recap on the tropical storm heading for the Marianas?
Well, we just did. Let's not forget there is a tropical storm warning in effect for Santiago, Fogo, and Brava on the Cabo Verde Islands. That is from Tropical Depression 8. That's the one on the right-hand side. It's the one that is the broadest out of all three Atlantic systems, really. And then further to the left, in the middle of that trio there, you can see Tropical Depression 9. That one is the one that we're watching for potentially getting into the Caribbean. And then Florence, which still has some work to do looking at this imagery, but we'll talk about that in a moment as we circle on back to Florence. And David?
Sorry, Nathan, I'm just reading the latest from the National Weather Service, Guam. The Mangkhut, what is it, a tropical depression?
Well, it's a tropical storm now, but I think the JTWC are only just updated it. Someone was saying earlier, why don't we use the JMA more? Well, we actually did. We did the first update on Mangkhut when it was named was as a tropical storm. The JTWC still had it as a depression, and we put it as a tropical storm. So we used their data, as we did when Jebi made landfall, because I certainly still thought it was a Category 2, and I don't think anyone here knows how JTWC managed to put it at Category 1 at landfall.
Also, I was reading after.
That was just atrocious, honestly.
Yeah, and actually, because we followed the JMA, according to the JMA, Jebi was the strongest landfalling typhoon in Japan since 1993.
Yeah, unless you do my reanalysis. I don't actually know if there are any stronger. But you're probably right though with that stat. Well, let's take a look at Florence and how it's been developing whilst we've been talking. And I wonder whether we could make any summarizations of what Florence has been doing in these last few frames as they appear on the stream, if any of you guys can see it. This loop shows roughly a 3-hour period, and any change for better or for worse?
On Florence, sorry?
Yeah.
I mean, it's looking... And my dog's going off again. Progressively better over time. I mean... Well, storm, I'd say, but... 55 knots, not so sure at this point. It could easily be a bit higher now. That's just my guess, though.
It's still fighting stronger wind shear, but within the next 24 hours, it's going to enter a significantly more favorable environment.
Shear has, been sliced in half. Like, even a bit lower now.
Yeah, it was a lot higher earlier today.
It was like 30, 35 knots. Now it's like 10 to 15. It's really decreased quite a bit. You can see in those frames on that loop that Nathan has on your screen, the boundaries in the southern half of the storm aren't budging. That means that the wind flow coming out of the southwest is significantly subsided recently. You can even see that you have winds coming in from the northwest, meaning that, there's not really much troughing going on in the area to really, mitigate any more wind shear coming into the storm. Continues to progress westward and continue to intensify and likely become another hurricane again. That's pretty much a given. Major hurricane again, that's almost a given.
Now,
a lot of people... Yeah, go ahead.
On the satellite imagery that we're looking at here, is that actually... That is 94L associated with it. Just thunderstorms popping up in between Florence and 94L. Are they significant in any way, shape, or form?
Those are just individual cells that are forming on the outside of 94L's area of lowered pressure, basically. You can see all those cells are also getting significantly sheared.
Yeah. If you look very carefully, you can just about make out Bermuda. That's towards the top left-hand side of the image near the mass of 94L. But that is what we're looking at right now, and we'll have another look at... In fact, I can show you another look at the models. This is one of the other websites that we often use for the models. This was used quite a lot during Hurricane Matthew, showing a lot of the different solutions, except the extrapolated model. Ignore that one. Okay. But you can see a lot of the others there. Hank, or anyone actually, anything that you can take away from this model run here?
Continue shift south.
Cluttered with statistical models, and that's kind of misleading. But in general, you can see here that yeah, these models are moving generally closer towards land, especially the dynamical ones. All the statistical ones recurve it because pretty much every single storm that's been in Florence's position recurs.
I'd like to cut in for a moment. Right now, I'm under flash flood warning, and that's just basically getting a sense of the moisture that's already prevalent in the area and possible flooding that will likely continue later on with so much rain that has already fallen over the summer.
Then effect till 11:45 Central.
Yeah, if anything, if basically any sort of tropical moisture comes up through here, things basically could get ugly. So, as we're still watching, we're hoping that Florence happens to turn out to sea. There's still that window of opportunity. I'd like to say that be ready, because even if, like, let's say for a northeastern region, for example, even if you probably won't experience direct hits by, let's say, God forbid, a storm ends up actually coming towards you, rain is definitely going to be a problem as well.
I mean, things are looking better and better for the Northeast in terms of odds going down, but for the Southeast, North Carolina, Virginia, even South Carolina now, things have regressed significantly in the past 2 days in terms of odds. You know, at this point, 5 days out, you know, some of the models are already starting to bring it pretty close to the coast. We still have another day or two before, you know, alarm bells really go off. But today was the first time, actually, 8 hours ago, was the first time the National Hurricane Center made sure to specify in a forecast that interest along the East Coast should be tracking the progression of the storm.
Oh dear.
Okay. Oh, well.
I put
Alright,
my
I beg your pardon? Someone's not so well. Anyway, you can see
But,
the 30% chances, as Strat was alluding to there, along the outer banks of North Carolina, as an
Yeah,
example.
I don't know if they heard what I just said at the end, but this was the first time the National Hurricane Center said in a forecast earlier today that interest along the East Coast should monitor the progress of the storm. So that just shows that they're starting to take note that there's a rising chance of an impact along the East Coast. But they're being very specific, and I think this is still wise to not specify which area at this point.
Yes, of course, and as you can see, a wide spread there as well, not only in the southern area, but also further north as well. There's still a very long time to be looking at this, and unfortunately, the bad part about these live streams that we often do well before the fact is that we can't always tell you the answer.
There's a question on live stream that let me just read it. Will Florence have any impacts on the east coast of Florida?
Hard to say, and I mean,
We don't
the further
think so.
north Florida you go, the more likely, like spiral bands are. Basically, I wouldn't say that a direct impact is likely or even, you know, probable in that area. It's more likely to be further north.
I'd like to mention that the new HWRF run in on Florence is beginning to come out. So far, it's only gone out to 18 hours.
Oh, sorry.
Then there's a on the HWRF for Florence.
Yeah, alright. Well, I think that covers everything in terms of the tropics, because we've spoken about a lot of things in the last 2 hours, and I think we needed all of it in order to do so. Does anyone else have anything to add to this
I
section?
actually have something to add. With the remnants of Tropical Storm Mangkhut, which is now a very weak tropical depression, some areas in the Northeast could see anywhere between 2 to as high as maybe 6-7 inches of rain over the next 96 hours. Mainly from Sunday into Monday. Yep, and I'm unfortunately going to be affected by that.
And you can see all of these model runs here as well. We'll take some more questions very quickly. Send a message to Force 13 all in text. There was one. What letter do you think the Pacific and Atlantic hurricane seasons will end on?
Point still. I mean,
M or N?
jeez,
We don't know.
that's very hard to say.
M or N? It could
That,
possibly
that
be
was that was somewhat of an inaccurate prediction, but that's just my prediction. We're too early to tell right now.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I guess I just threw out M, considering the fact that my name is also on the name list for this year.
yes, like another Michael that we spoke to. Well, the Force 13's original forecast got it to L. If that helps anyone.
Probably going to be near or past there by this point.
Alright. Well, what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be taking a break here now. The stream will end for a few minutes, and then we're going to be back again at the top of the hour. So don't move if you want to stick around. But we're going to be doing Guess the Storm in the next hour of tonight's proceedings. That's going to be the final hour that we'll be spending with you tonight. So just be aware that the stream will go offline for a few moments whilst I do some tinkering in the background, and we'll be back on fresh again at the top of this hour. So we're just past 10 minutes to the hour, and we'll be away for just a few minutes. I think everyone has finished saying their piece, are they?
Yep.
All right.
I'd just say people on the East Coast should really start to monitor progress. Virgin Island, not just the Virgin Islands, Leeward, Windward Islands, Taiwan, Guam, Mariana Islands. We have a lot of places that should be keeping track of storms right now.
It's a crazy time. Alright then, we'll be back with some more streaming on the live page in a few minutes. If you're not on that page, you might want to navigate there. And you'll also see it light up on the channel, I assume. I don't know how all these things work. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned.